All right. What up, Double Edge Nation? I guess we better start off with some intro music, huh? There it is. Today on the show, got my brother, Jacob Wellock.
Hello.
Hello. We are going to talk about a handful of different topics. Should I give them some applause?
Sure.
What do the people think? Yay. Welcome. All right, enough of that stuff. Really got to dial in that intro at some point, I think.
We will.
I mean, sometimes not being perfect is perfect in itself.
Yep.
Like authenticity.
Yeah.
So last time we were in here, it was the last recording in the shithole.
Mm-hmm.
And we have now
I know you
gutted it.
did a good job in here. It looks really good.
I mean, you took the picture.
There's that fly.
That fly. Oh, that thing's gonna drive me crazy. Tried to kill it. Yeah. So I'm pretty happy with how our little mini studio turned out.
Yeah, it looks good.
You know, Cassie and I were able to record in here, and then I totally fumbled the camera because it overheated and shut off halfway through. So today, you know, we might get a full length on the YouTube channel, and we might not. We'll see what happens. But regardless, I think the audio sounds pretty good. And we are here today to talk about, let's see, some training methodologies, his questions and stuff that have come up with me and members over, I guess, my tenure here at Double Edge Fitness, which has been since we've opened.
Since day one.
Shocking.
Mm-hmm.
Some things that came up with training, such as, well, 1 rep maxes, using percentage work, this and that. I want to slip sugar water into here a little bit. Not the negative side. Let's add a little note here. Sugar wad. Traditional and conventional deadlifts, something that drives, let's just say a little bit of emotional turmoil amongst some folks.
Wow.
Yeah.
A lot of things to be emotional about, and that's what we choose to be emotional on.
Yeah. So I guess, you know, if that's what we're going to get emotional about, I guess life's pretty good. That fly. Oh, really want to kill it. Jesus, that thing is fat. That's like...
That is a big-ass fly.
It's a big-ass fly.
It went to the light, though. Maybe it'll stay there.
It's not even like barely spring. How are these things living so soon? All right. So we got some deadlifting. We have some phone text messages coming through. Talk about training till fatigue versus failure. A couple notes there. Muscle building and recovering. Stuff when it comes to, you know, that kind of things. Optimal recoverable volume and intensity. That's something I've spoken about a couple times in brief that we can get into a little bit. The importance of a good warm-up. I think people undervalue a good warm-up. And it takes away from their training. Some supplements, particularly creatine, and understanding if you're getting good supplements and how to know if you're getting good supplements. Use of artificial intelligence for meal planning. This is a handy-dandy trick if y'all haven't dove into this one yet. And then, yeah, I think that's kind of it. So,
right.
This fly, dude, this thing's like coming at us. Boom. Take that thing down. All right, so we got a massive fly on the first show.
This is a big old fat bastard. Oh, I see him.
You see him? You gonna get him? All right.
I went behind the curtain.
Oh, maybe you can get him real good. Jake's stepping away real quick. He's gonna take out this fly. The thing is huge. It's kind of nerve-wracking. Might have fangs. Did you get him? Sorry for the delay, people. This is like life-saving, potentially life-saving. This thing looks like it's got demons inside of it. I don't see it anywhere. I don't hear it. I don't hear it whizzing around. So,
It might be stuck behind the curtain
All right. All right, we're back. We're back. So, training based on 1 rep maxes. I got the guy that knows some things about some things when it comes to this.
Yeah.
And it's a method of training that we've basically deployed since day one.
Mm-hmm.
It's still substantially backed by scientific proof that it's effective and it works. So let's talk about it a little bit. So
Sure.
why don't you explain why we use 1 rep maxes in percentage work?
I mean, 1 rep maxes are really just they're just a test at the end of the day. I mean, if training and fitness is about, like true training and fitness is about longevity and health and wellness, there are certain markers that you have to be able to test in order to, that whole thing behind CrossFit, observable, repeatable, measurable.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the 1 rep max is quite literally just a test of measurement of progress over time. So if you never train to essentially failure, whether it be cardiovascular work or strength work, you never know where your limit is. And by not knowing where your limit is, you can never hit adaptations that are going to help facilitate growth in that discipline of training. So like the 5-minute bike test we did the other day, or a 1 mile run or a marathon. It doesn't matter what it is. If your goal is to get as healthy and fit as you can, there are certain ends of these spectrums when it comes to endurance, strength training, flexibility for that matter, that you have to see where you're at currently in order to push yourself to the next level.
Yeah, to facilitate change.
Yeah, when I first maxed, and I'll say this with air quotes because, technique and range of motion might not have been as good as it is today. But when I first maxed, what's cool about this is the tracking over all of the years. When I first hit my 1 rep max back squat, it was either 135 and 155 pounds the first time I maxed out. Didn't even know what a back squat was until we started doing CrossFit. Mm-hmm. And now my current 1 rep max is 500 pounds. So that was something that has been tracked and tested thoroughly over the last, 11 years. It took me to get to that point where when I'm putting in consistent work, if I had never tested my max strength and always stayed within, a comfort zone or what possibly felt right, or never actually pushed myself, to that max, like let's say metaphorically staying in that 60 to 70% comfortable range, I would probably still be roughly right around that 155 pounds, arguably. Like you're never going to hit adaptation to get stronger. And if we're not in the gym to get faster, fitter, and stronger, then honestly, what are we even doing here?
Yeah, 100%. So, my interpretation is exactly yours. You have to know what failure is to be able to back off and then train an adaptation. Getting stronger and building muscle for long-term health is absolutely vital.
And it's relevant to that individual.
Yes.
I know me saying, I'm not saying that to toot my horn, even though it may sound that way a little bit. Squatting 500 pounds is pretty cool. It's a big deal. I think it's a big deal from the injuries I've overcome to get to this point, but it's relevant to whether it's 18-year-old me, 33-year-old me. I plan on doing this until, I kick the can, 70-year-old me or whatever that age day is going to be, that my 1 rep max 30 years from now is going to be different than what it is now. But my goal is to constantly be pushing the envelope in these spectrums of fitness. So I'm always bettering myself and not falling down the metaphorical, the hole as I get older, that I'm regressing in my cardiovascular system, my strength training, what have you, that I'm constantly pushing myself. So in this spot that I'm in now, that I hit numbers and physically achieve things better than I've ever achieved before. But as I get older, those things will go down, that I'm, fighting the test of time, if you will.
That good old disease called aging that we all contract one day at a time.
Yeah.
So what's interesting, I mean, me and you are 7 years apart, and I'm kind of in this aging question phase of 1 rep maxes and hanging up the jersey on some of the past 1 rep maxes, but still training intentionally and building strength based on percentage work still at my current age and strength level. So for instance, now my 1 rep max all-time best back squat's 400 pounds. And I haven't even been really remotely close to that, nor have I even really truly tried to test it since I hurt my spine. And now I am starting to work on building confidence based on my, what I call confident 1 rep max, which is 365.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to follow percentages based on that lift to, start rebuilding confidence, strength, and stability, and build some lean muscle. Back squatting is one of the greatest exercises you can do for building lean muscle. But I'm at a different chapter in life now. But I'm still using the same idea and concept to continue to progress and build strength. The level of effort that goes into me testing a true 1 rep max, I would put it at about a 90% effort now. Like I just call them 100% confident lifts. Mm-hmm. Versus, testing a true 1 rep max. I mean, you're fighting for your soul.
Yeah. And what I would say to that is that you've been around the block. You've been doing this a long time, that you know where your limits are and you know where you need to dial back based off of goals. Like me training to hit a 500-pound back squat was a very specific goal. Do I need to squat 500 pounds to be healthy? No. Does someone need to row a sub 7-minute 2K to be healthy? No. I mean, we're yes tapping into specifics of your intensity in training and where your goals are. Right. I really enjoy strength training. That's always been the case. You've always been the cardio guy, like being able to do.
Bro. I'm slightly above average at a lot of things.
No, absolutely. But if we were to the dichotomy between the two of us,
yes,
I'm one end of the spectrum, you're the other end of the spectrum. But true fitness is being able to have both, right? Like other than me being out of shape and tired all of the time right now, like I have decent cardio numbers and tests, but they pale in comparison to some of the crazy shit you do, and vice versa.
Arguably, on that same topic, one reason my strength numbers probably aren't as high is because I refuse to give up my aerobic capacity to any degree.
Yeah.
Like to truly focus on strength training and muscular hypertrophy training, it's very advantageous to pull back the aerobic work allow your muscles to build.
Yeah, and this is tapping into specific
energy
training
systems and training styles and so forth. So we use 1 rep maxes. We use percentage work here at the gym. And, a handful, like 3 conversations over the last few weeks, people because I harp on, basically regurgitating really smart people about the importance of building muscle, building strength. I value building strength over just pure muscular hypertrophy, but if you have muscular hypertrophy, you're going to have strength follow, and the inverse is also true to a degree, although there's training styles that can optimize strength without growing muscle, size, if you will. But in general, we know and proven by science that the stronger you are and the higher your VO2 max, the much more improved long-term health span, health outcomes, reduction of chronic disease, and so forth is significant. It's massive. It's the single most important thing you can do. Mm-hmm. And just for instance, there is some study that people who worked out regularly and smoked cigarettes lived longer than people who didn't smoke and didn't work out.
And ate relatively healthy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like exercise has a massive, profound effect on your long-term health span. And I'm not saying you should smoke cigarettes and eat like garbage and exercise, but what I'm reiterating here is just the importance of exercise. So do you need to deadlift or squat 500 pounds to be healthy? If you can do it healthy, I think it's very beneficial, because if you have a 500 pound back squat at 35, chances are when you're 70, you're probably going to be able to squat 150, 200 pounds. And I don't know a 70-year-old out there that wouldn't be like, I would like to be able to squat, my body weight.
I saw a video of a 95-year-old man a few months ago deadlift 405 for a set of 10.
Yep. So it's like, as long as you can do this training and build this work capacity, both in your VO2 max and your strength without, minimal injury, to pretend you're not going to get a tweak, an ache, and a pain or something here and there, training is ignorant. But if you can do it intelligently, like the benefits of building maximum levels of strength and VO2 max output is only going to help you be awesome every single year you click off the old calendar.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, managing your ego.
Yeah.
Like if it's not there, or you don't have the genetic makeup to be able to do something like this, someone who comes in the gym is 5'4" and 115 pound male says, I want to squat 500 pounds. It's probably not going to happen, but if they train like they're going to squat 500 pounds, they're probably going to hurt themselves. Or someone who's really fat and out of shape and eats like shit and doesn't mobilize, doesn't eat healthy, and trains hard, they're going to hurt themselves.
Yeah.
Like, you have to be able to manage parts of your ego. And is this actually pushing you towards being healthy, or is this, just an ego trip? Like if I said I want to squat 600 pounds, the road to get to 600 would mean I'd probably have to gain weight. Well, what does that look like? I'd probably just be moving mass moves mass. I wouldn't be doing it in a healthy way. Arguably, probably get to a point where I'm using drugs. Like, there are some people that are natural and healthy and are far stronger than I am because of their genetic makeup.
Yep. I was talking about this somewhere. Don't even remember where, but how important understanding and accepting your genetics.
Mm-hmm.
Because, all the way down to how much type 1, type 2 muscle fibers were you born with?
Yeah.
Like, you're kind of set with a set amount when you're born. What develops more over the sports you play growing up and, the environmental factors in your life growing up is going to make a difference. But, genetics do play a big role in physique. They do play a big role in strength capacity. They do play a big role in aerobic capacity.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody that's very explosive and has a bunch of type 1 muscle fibers, probably not going to be the best endurance athlete.
No.
Doesn't mean doing endurance work's not going to help them be healthier and, fitter and have higher training capacity in their workouts and so forth. And the inverse is also true. Somebody who's more aerobically oriented as an athlete, that doesn't mean that doing heavy strength work isn't going to benefit that side of your genetic makeup. And in the bodybuilding space and physique space, genetics play a huge factor. Obviously, drugs and all these other things do too, but genetics do play a huge factor in physique. So just accepting the body God gave you and the makeup that God gave you, and working with a coach and identifying these things and, optimizing yourself the best that you can.
Yeah, I think that goes back to full circle to testing 1 rep maxes.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're probably capable of a lot more than you realize, but you'll never know unless you hit these, say, quote unquote, extremes for yourself to figure out where your abilities lie. Like, if you don't ever actually push it, you'll never know.
Yep. And regardless of your genetics, regardless of whatever, if your goal is to live a long, healthy, fit life, training and progressive overloading intelligently is one of the best ways to build foundational strength and fundamental strength for long-term health. And again, that's why I use 1 rep maxes at the gym. And then to build muscle and build strength, following progressive overload principles, following our percentage work it does the trick. But what I have realized is, like, a lot of people wing it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, oftentimes there's too much training around feelings, which if you feel like crap that day, hitting a true 80% might not be the best thing for you to do. Like, you have to gauge your lifting sessions on how you feel. Like, if it wouldn't be advantageous if you had a terrible night's sleep, the last 24 hours was super stressful, didn't eat well, and then you come in and expect your body to perform at such levels. And this is where I can find a bridge between percentage work and RPE to still get value out of training. But in general, I believe over the bulk of your training, you need to be following objective data, especially when it comes to your lifts. So I was writing down sugar WOD this is for our double edge community. Using sugar WOD is a very powerful tool, and not going to get into it on this podcast, but you sensitive folks out there with the leaderboard stuff, just know I got a special place in my heart for you, and we're going to talk about that at a different time. But you can use sugar WOD. You can go into the settings. You can shut off the leaderboard function for yourself, where your stuff does not post to the old leaderboard, but you can still track your progress. And with that, for instance, right now, my back squat, since that's what we did yesterday, it's in there at my most recent heaviest lift is 365. And you hit prepare, and it lays out your percentages for you, what you need to lift that day, and you track it. And then the next time when we do a percentage jump, it goes up. It's all there. I track it. And by progressive overloading this, should be, and proven time and time again, getting stronger. It's that simple. So you guys out there, when it comes to 1 rep maxes, I'm definitely finding value in it and working with your coach to make sure your 1 rep max is, a correct time in your training. What would you call it? Your training career. I don't like people testing a 1 rep max their first month of training. But
it wouldn't really be accurate. When I look at someone testing 1 rep max, I look at, do they have the range of motion?
Yep.
Do they have the technique? Do they have the mental fortitude and maturity to actually hit a true 1 rep max?
Yeah, and
that takes time.
It takes time. It depends on your historical background as an athlete or this or that, what kind of training you've done in the past. But in general, when a new person walks into the gym, I personally, I'm not pushing them to do a 1 rep max. I know there's some coaches and trainers out there that like to go right out the gate with some sort of test, some sort of benchmark. I'm personally one to get you moving, consistently training. And
you just use those first couple months to just move and kind of get your feet wet.
Yep.
Before you're really thrown in any kind of testing. It'd be like walking into a high school math class having never taken math and be like, here's, a calculus test.
Yeah.
Like, it's just,
and that doesn't mean
you're going to fail.
You're not going to make progress during that time, because you're still going to make progress. Your body's still going to get valuable training in. It's just in your training career, this becomes very important for continued progression. Anything else on that?
Yeah, it's necessary, a necessity, if you will. But there are things that you need to be able to check the box on beforehand. Do you have the mobility to actually hit it? Because same thing leading into this next section. Like, if you go to max a sumo deadlift and you don't have the hip flexibility to pull it off, you're going to hurt yourself.
Yep.
Like, you have to be able to have the ranges of motion. You have to have somewhat of a background. Doesn't need to be an extensive background. You're going to have to hit a max eventually. Like, it doesn't need to be like this 5-year process in order to test it. You just have to have a solid understanding of the movements, how you move, make sure your coach is aware of how you're moving, because maybe your idea of how you're moving and your coach's idea of how you're moving are drastically different. And the confidence to do it.
Yep.
If you go for a 1 rep max back squat and you do check the box on range of motion and technique, but you're like too scared to actually try it, that could be a recipe for injury.
Oh yeah.
Like, you have to be confident.
Get folded over on a back squat
in doing these things. Exactly. Like, you have to have the confidence, the maturity, the range of motion, and the know-how to be able to do something like this.
Yep. Now, I will give this one little quick caveat. depending on where you're at in life, age-wise, past history, maybe a 1 rep max isn't ever going to be for you, and that's fine. But I would still own the progressive overload concepts. And if you're working, you're just going to do like 3 to 8 reps of a lot of our traditional compound lifts, but you're still working on building load over time. So tracking how much you lifted, and in Sugar WOD, it'll give you your previous lifts, how many reps you did, how much you lifted. And we do power cleans again. It'll show you your history, and you can okay, I had 2.5 pounds this week. How do I feel? I can still lift at higher rep schemes, building strength and progressive overloading, and being very productive by doing that. I do know some folks in the gym that are in their 50s and so forth that just don't want to risk, the potential injury of truly testing 1 rep max. And I can respect that. But they still want to get stronger, where you're not going to get stronger just guessing.
Yeah, I would say someone who's older needs to be more diligent. Even if they do want to max it out, they need to be more diligent and understanding of how their body feels and where they're at physically and mentally in order to test that. 20-year-old or a high school kid coming in, testing a max, they could look like an absolute train wreck and be totally fine and have zero issues with them. You take a 60-year-old and they max out and they feel like shit and they're not moving well and the range of motion isn't there and they go for it. Like they could be recipe for a disaster. Yeah. So someone who's older needs to be more responsible of what's happening internally before they truly apply anything crazy externally. You know?
And the rate or the rating of lifts, I would say, as we get older, the power lifts are probably going to be the safer ones, are less complex. So, pushing your strength numbers on deadlift, squat, and bench press and strict press, these are going to be less dynamic movements than the Olympic lifts. And these are all areas you need to communicate with your coach communicate with you on where you can progressively build strength and develop that type 2 muscle fiber. That is the first type of strength loss that takes place, is the bleeding off of our explosive power as we age. So maintaining explosive movements, the Olympic lifts, there is definite value there. As we get older, we shouldn't avoid them, but just make sure you're working with your coach and hitting these optimally. I think it's important. I mean, this goes for Double Edge members. This goes for anybody in the universe. So, So leading right into that, regular deadlift versus traditional deadlift. And we go through cycles where we're doing a lot of sumo, we're doing a lot of traditional. And I get the comments of, why is my sumo so much better or so much worse than my traditional deadlift? Or I'm not going to do sumo deadlift because I always hurt my effing back.
Or vice versa.
Or vice versa. Yeah, exactly. Or vice versa. And what I've told folks, and got some notes here, a lot of these two deadlifts do come down to your mobility, your genetic makeup, femur length, torso length. These are all going to play into which one's going to work better for you. But like I told a couple people this last time when we went through our sumo deadlift cycle, now we're back into traditional. Don't put an expectation that these should be the same. Like a very good friend of mine, pretty intelligent human being, coming to my class. And I told him, that's too much damn weight on the bar for you. That's too much weight. Why are you deadlifting that? I want to deadlift my future max based on that percentage. I think you just figured out who it was.
Yeah, I sure did.
And what happened?
Does he lack hair?
Yeah, he hurt himself. And he blamed it on the sumo deadlift. I was like, no, you're not going to be as strong at that. You need to train it within its own bucket. And we can still get tremendous value out of developing our hips and our back and our hamstrings. Mostly, I love it for my hips.
Yeah, and testing these is an expression of where you're weak and where you're strong. The cool thing about a sumo and conventional is it's one of the few lifts where you have essentially two variations to test in a very similar fashion to see what you're stronger at. Is it because of your genetics, your biomechanics, Do you have an incredibly strong ass? Do you have an incredibly weak ass? Do you have, really strong erectors but weak hamstrings? Like, there's a lot of things that can be highlighted in these two lifts,
Like, yeah,
that can show you what you need to work on. Like, I have a kid, you know him too. He's like 6'3", 6'4", and his 1 rep max conventional is 455, but his 1 rep max sumo is 145.
wow.
Because his hips are so weak and so tight. He's so tall that when he gets into that super wide position with his feet, it places so much taxing and loading on his hips, which is not a bad thing. It's a bad thing that there's that much of a discrepancy, but he's so weak in that area. So when he tries to lift heavy on sumo, it's prone to injury because he is so weak in those areas. So then arguably I would have him train sumo more at a much lighter weight for higher volumes to help slowly build up the musculature around his hips and ass based off of what sumo is supposed to do, because there's such a differential between the two.
Yeah. Which, to your point exactly, that's what I did for myself. So I do deadlift. I think a lot of CrossFitters do, but it's a lot of back. Like, the number of people in the gym in general over the last couple of years that don't get sore hamstrings or butts from doing traditional deadlifts, like, they just don't feel it. It's always back musculature. You guys need to learn to delineate between back muscle soreness and nerve pain in your back. Nothing sets me more sideways than when somebody, I hurt my back. Where's it hurt? When I push right here on your QL, that's a sore muscle. Those need trained too.
Yeah.
If you guys don't know what that is, come talk to me in person. I will specifically show you exactly where that is. And that is good to train. So just what you said, I had a big deviation, not that big of a deviation, but I do have a sizable 60-pound deviation between my sumo and my traditional, which isn't terrible.
Yeah.
But
still in the range of normal.
I have to be very conscientious in my traditional deadlift to get my hamstrings and butt to be working, in an equal manner, not just relying on my back. And deadlifting, thankfully, has never been a spinal issue for me like squatting has been. But when I started, and I put a lot of intention into this last cycle of sumo deadlifts and started working that, it really, like, my hips stronger, my back feels better, and everything improved. I really was able to see the value putting some more intention into my own training during that time and embracing these. And the reason I looked into it is people asking me questions, and I'm like, well, I kind of want to understand this better. And I started picking it apart on myself, and I'm like, well, you guys, you all should train this. And there shouldn't be, it's okay to have deviation, but it should not be a dramatic deviation between it. But like Jacob said, it exposes some weaknesses. And when you can correct those weaknesses, it's going to help overall.
So something I learned with Westside that Louis talked about a lot way back in the day, and opinions change as you experiment more and stuff like that, was that the sumo deadlift helps build the conventional, but the conventional doesn't help build sumo.
Makes total sense.
A lot of us, sumo is more of an accessory style lift for the conventional. My experience with sumo, people really preferring sumo as someone who is biomechanically more inclined to lift more comfortably on sumo, whether it's really long legs or, whatever. Long arms,
short torso.
Yeah. So it's usually directly related to either some prior back injury or their genetics. I had a lady when we tested the 1 rep max conventional deadlift last week or the week before, whatever it was. She hit a 30-pound PR in her deadlift, and she hasn't hit a PR in her deadlift in like 3 years. And she's like, well, where did that come from? That's really strange. And I'm like, well, you made a commitment to coming really consistently over the last 3 months, and we've been training sumo a shitload. So we just built up your hips and ass a ton under these loads. She's like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. And then the next day she came in, she's like, my hamstrings have never been this sore ever. And I'm like, that was from one deadlift. Like, your body, you've trained your body and built up your musculature in these areas that were completely lacking in order to complete a very demanding task in the 1 rep max deadlift and you hit a 30-pound PR.
Yep.
Because you built up these areas that were weak. And that's a great example of when these things are trained correctly, what tends to happen.
Yeah, and she wasn't the only one. There's a handful of people in the gym that when we just recently tested 1 rep max deadlift that PR'd.
Yeah, and
traditional
and
deadlift.
even through my experiences at the Sumo will build up the conventional. You train Sumo a lot because it's usually you're lacking in your hips and butt that carries over to when you go to conventional, you're going to feel stronger.
Yeah. Yeah.
Usually the case.
Love it. So at the end of the day, you guys, understand the purpose of the lift. A lot of back injuries in sumo deadlift come from a dominant leg that your hip rotates. One hip will rotate, and that'll put pressure at your L5-S1 joint in your low back. Most of the time, just saying this with air quotes, most of the time a hip adjustment from a good chiropractor will fix that real quick. But that's also exposes an imbalance in your strength because one leg's taking over and it's causing that rotation. So a couple quick points for myself, but I think these are good training principles. When you're not sure of your position and how to feel the lifts, really own the eccentric side of the lifts, the lowering phase of the lifts. You can feel the lift really well. Doing that at lighter weights and slower reps for a while until you're getting really the hang of how it's supposed to feel through the whole lift. Just grip and rip reps, a lot of times isn't the best way to do it and to feel the lift. So I have been having a handful of people really slow their lifts down. And in this last bout of sumo deadlift, I got some buy-in from folks. So don't blame the lift, blame yourself. And be okay with learning new things, even if you're not good at them and you have to go a little lighter. And it's probably going to benefit you in a big way, correcting those imbalances.
I think in figuring out why you're not as good at it or why it hurts you or why you don't like it, like if you're not sure, ask your coach.
Yep.
And sometimes it takes like a newer coach might not know. We've been having our eyes on, argue at this point, probably millions of reps on certain exercises that they might need to ask, let's just say us in this example. Some of these things are so nitty gritty down to the detail that it may be very specific to you, but a lot of times it is something that's probably a lot more simple than you realize, and just you need to be okay with sucking at a certain lift so you can work on it to be better.
Yep, exactly. So just be patient, you guys. Be willing to work on your weaknesses. They're only going to make your strength stronger. And it's also going to help prevent injury and keeping your body more balanced. So, yeah. All right, next I got on here. Training until fatigue versus failure. This is something that I personally believe in when people ask me how... I train quite a bit. How do you recover? This and that. You need to train till failure from time to time. Mm-hmm. Hence the 1 rep maxes or 5-minute bike tests and this and that. But you can't do that crap every day. Mm-mm. You're literally going to break your body into small little pieces. But training till fatigue and understanding where these limitations are come from knowing where your failure points are. Now, before doing that 5-minute bike test, my goal was 140 calories. That was based on me getting over 220 in 10 minutes. So experience in the gym, experience knowing my body. Mm-hmm. That's how I was able to extrapolate that. Mm-hmm. And that comes from training experience, tracking your training over time, and knowing your body. Like having enough time in the gym training that you really do get in tune with your body, what it's capable of, how it feels during the sets. Like this isn't normal. And with that, learning to train to fatigue is an area that I like to use for optimal recovery into the next day. If we come in here and push in the gym every single day until failure, we black out, we're flopping around on the ground after Metcons. There was a time in all of our lives that we'd done it. Every day was the pain cave day. It's not it's not going to facilitate optimal recovery. So learning and using, maybe tools or this or that, but training up until you get a nice fatigue point that will facilitate change, growth, and adaptation, but not pushing till flopping around on the ground, heart feels like it's going to explode out of your butthole, panic attacks. Like if you're getting panic attacks before doing a Metcon, your psyche's all messed up. Like it shouldn't be that. It should be a great workout that you feel good, that you get a nice fatigue, but you're not pushing to these depths of darkness. Does this make sense?
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm articulating this very well.
No, I understand what you're saying. I think in order for people to understand the positives of majority of our training being in that, fatigue zone, you still have to, like you said, understand what failure feels like for you currently, not something that happened 20 years ago, but where you're at. Hence, like the 1 rep max being a great, very simple mathematical example. I mean, you're quite literally going to failure. That's how you figure out what your 1 rep max is. That if you don't know what that feels like, or like the 2K row test where you are in that flopping on the floor, like you really don't have anything left to give. When you know where that limit is, then you can train objectively and intelligently to facilitate and yield net positive gains in your cardiovascular training and your strength training, because you know where that limit is and you've intentionally dialed it back to be in working sets mode.
Yep.
If you don't know where this failure is and you're in your mind fatigue, but you're really only training at like 40% capacity, and you're never actually in fatigue, you're just in a very subjective state of mind, like, oh, I'm kind of tired. It burns a little bit. I'm working hard, but you're really not.
Yep. Exactly. And I think that's where some people get lost in the results part of it.
Yeah. And on the flip side of that coin, you got people in the gym like, us, I think more the younger crowd or ego-driven crowd or both, where you got to come in and just beat the shit out of yourself every single day. You're not getting in the work. I have conversations with people currently that struggle with this, that if they're not getting in an hour and a half, 2 hours of just brutal training a day, then they're just wasting their time.
Yep.
And that's more of a mental block. You have to learn, or you will be forced to learn. I mean, you will hurt yourself.
I've
and
gone through
sometimes you have to learn the hard way, even if your coaches are there to help guide you and you're refusing to do it. Unfortunately, you're going to have to hit that breaking point. And sometimes people hit that breaking point and go, oh, CrossFit's not for me, or strength training's not for me. And then they transition to something else.
They hit that breaking point and then they give up on the
because
plan.
The emotional maturity was not there to either accept responsibility for kind of the dumb shit they did, like we have.
Yeah.
Hence injuries and other things we've gone through. Or they're too emotionally fragile that they just move on to the next thing. And then that state of mind will carry in any part of your life. You have to be able to accept the reasons, sorry, pardon my language, but for fucking up in the first place, to be able to adjust and make a current change for your benefit. And it's okay to go through that.
And I would say, like you said, it's okay to go through that, but that's where coming to somebody and working out with us in a gym like us can really help with that learning curve and prevent a lot of these tripping over your feet. Like we kind of, in the early stages of our life, we were pretty self-taught.
Absolutely.
And there's a lot of mistakes and injuries and beat downs in the process. And then, as we got smarter, trained more, learned from our mistakes and stuck with it. I mean, I look at myself at 40, you're kind of seeing 25 years of training experience kind of coming together now in an intelligent way of approaching this. And I just want to reiterate to people out there, like, we kind of know what we're doing. And if you work with us and communicate with us, we're here to help. And you can prevent a lot of this frustration in a training style. You're going to speed up that learning curve because of, all the coaches and our experience.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes you go through seasons of neurological adaptation where you'll see gains quickly. Like it's not just, you're going to see the most when you first start training. Like if you've never done CrossFit or just strength training, for example, and you dive right into it and you do have good genetics to be strong, you're going to hit PR after PR after PR after PR, and then all of a sudden it's going to stop.
Yep.
And a lot of people get discouraged, but there will also be seasons. Like I went from going from a 450-pound back squat, or to go from 405 to 450 was a 3-year adventure. To go from 450 to 455 was another 3-year adventure. And then to go from 455 to 500 was a 6-year adventure, but from my last PR. But to go from that 55 to 500 window was 3 months.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? So like the waves, there are neurological waves that we go through where we're in a bottom position. We don't feel like we're PRing very often and we're doing all the right things. But then we go back to, we ride the wave up again and we go and hit these new adaptations. Like even you're at your oldest point in life currently, but you're also hitting numbers and doing things that I would argue you're fitter now than you were 10 years ago.
Everything's gotten better, but a couple lifts, and that's purely because of my own personal protective nature of my back.
And obviously we're owners of the business, so we're committed to this process, but it's also because you have done this consistently and intelligently and learned yourself that you are continuing to make progress. Like you're not in this downward trend. Just because you're not squatting 500 pounds doesn't mean that you're in a downward trend. You're getting fitter in all areas that are of specific importance to you, is from like a sporting, looking at it from like a sport mindset. Like being able to do 141 calories in 5 minutes, like that's badass. That's pretty elite level of fitness. Someone pulling off 141 calories in 5 minutes on the assault bike, like if you don't hit 140 calories, you're not healthy. Like that's like backtracking a little bit. Like that's the extreme, right? But I would say you probably wouldn't have been able to do maybe 125, maybe 130 5 or 6 years ago. But I would put you currently up against old you 10 years ago would win. So you're still accelerating your progress by, obviously there's been a huge nutrition side of things for you, but you're still putting in the work. Your body's still going through neurological adaptations as you get older.
Yeah.
There will be a point when that turns around a little bit, sure.
Yeah.
And then our whole goal at that point is just to mitigate how fast we go downhill.
Yeah, mitigate how fast we go downhill, but also still be, I mean, me personally, I still want to be, top 1% of society at that age group. Now at 50, do I plan on beating 20-year-olds? No. But do I plan on being the best version of myself at 50?
Yeah.
Yep.
And I think it would just depend on what the test is. There's plenty of 50-year-olds that would beat the hell out of some 20-year-olds depending on what that test is.
No, I know. I'm just saying in general. Like the goal is not to continuously de-age myself, even though I feel like in the last 3 years
it's just an expression of committing to this process that you're still getting better and better, which is cool.
I mean, I see some people in the gym approaching 50 still getting, lifetime PRs, still growing, still doing awesome stuff. Like, you have to learn to train smarter. You have to understand your body. Nutrition, sleep, these things become more and more valuable and pay bigger dividends, I think, as we get older. You get away with some shit in your 20s. You do. That you don't get away with as well in your 30s, but definitely, I think, 40s, 50s, these other areas, the other 23 hours of the day, if you will, become more and more and more. And if you start taking care of those other 23 hours of the day when you're in your 20s and 30s, it's even going to make you more badass then.
Yeah.
But, just optimizing all aspects of your health and wellness, training properly, pushing your body properly, also recovering. A good metaphor that Bobby Maximus talked about was your training is like a bank account. You can't just deplete it all the time and not refill it. Like recovery and overtraining is not a thing. It's only under recovering is a thing. So you can train as much as you are capable and have the capacity and bandwidth to recover.
Yeah. That example that he used when we were at that seminar, which is a great example, is for every training session you do, just imagine it's you swiping your credit card.
Yep.
And then for every piece of recovery you do, whether foam rolling, ice bath, sauna,
Nutrition, sleep.
nutrition, like each one of those is a deposit into your account for you to pay off what you swiped on your credit card. So if you're just continually swiping the credit card, now you're just in a ton of debt. You're in, fitness debt, if you will. And if you do that enough, you go into fitness bankruptcy, and that's usually,
unless you're the federal government, you just print some shit.
That's where performance enhancing drugs come in. That's the federal government. But
PDs.
Unless you take care of yourself, you never get out of that hole. And if you hit that fitness bankruptcy, that's usually when people go through some kind of mental breakdown or physical breakdown. They get hurt, and then they don't want
training bankruptcy. I love that one. That's a good one.
Just came up with that, dude. But you have to put in these deposits. You can't just constantly be in a state of withdrawal.
So, fitness isn't directly linear.
Yeah.
It looks like a line graph that's wackadoodle. And as long as you're keeping that on a 1 year, 5 year, 10-year trend line, trending up, it's not going to be a straight line, but you look at an overall trend, if that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm. So I know we're saying the right stuff, but we're going a little off, I guess not off topic, but fatigue and failure, you have to be able to know what your true failure looks like in order to train in a state of fatigue for positive results.
And a great thing while we're using RPE right now, rate of perceived efforts. I know I get sarcastic out there and say rate of perceived emotions. I struggle sometime with subjective feel goods versus objective hard data. But a good place once you start learning your body and to keep building muscle and strength is to train to arguably the RPE of 7 to 8, which would be 3 to 2 reps of reps in reserve left in your body before you hit failure point. Like you start learning on some of these lifts, okay, I think I could have done 3 more. That's a great area to continue to make progress without breaking your body. And if you guys want, we can get more into this another time, but it comes down to just learning your body, learning your adaptations.
Yeah, and figuring out if you are failing, why you're failing. Mm-hmm. Is it true failure? Is it technique related? Is it emotionally related?
Yeah.
Like some people have emotional breakdowns. They'll doing a 5-minute test. I know some people in the gym that really do have the ability to shine on something like that, but can't mentally handle the pressure of doing something like that. That's where that
self-imposed pressure.
Yeah, emotional maturity comes in. Same thing with the 1 rep maxes.
Yep.
Like if you're checking the box on all these things and you're truly hitting failure in something, you need to figure out why. And then if you are, and it's a legitimate reason, then you adapt and change up the program from there for you, essentially.
And us here as coaches love having these conversations and helping you guys do this. This next part, I talk about muscle building and recovery. We just kind of harped on that quite a bit. A couple key points when it comes to building muscle. You have to gradually increase weight and reps over time. If you're not, we just talked about that. If you're not progressively overloading, you're not going to build muscle and strength. It's that simple. So if you're playing guesswork and just coming in and training off feels, that's not going to be a long-term solution to actually build muscle. So I would suggest journaling, tracking, sugar wad, notebook, the main compound lifts that we do. And
yeah, I mean, I was hitting all of my best progress when I was tracking because of consistent. Now I'm just happy if I just get literally anything in with the state of my life right now. And I can tell my performance is affected by that, but it's still recording. Derek's stressed that the camera's going to shut off on him again. That, what was I just saying?
They're just happy to get anything in. You're in maintenance mode.
I'm in a stage of life where I'm in a constant stage of failure and fatigue.
Yeah,
I'm living there right now.
Well, you're going through maintenance mode. You're figuring it out. You got a lot of things going on. I get it.
A lot of things going on.
But I went through that too. And it does get better. But when you're in a chapter of this life, Jacob's a great example right now. If you can just keep moving 2 to 3 days per week, you're going to maintain pretty well and maintain the platform for the next stage of training. It's when you completely give up on yourself.
Yes.
That is bad.
And this is when ego's tested too. Like me being able in the past, being able to squat 500 pounds. In my head, I'm like, I should still just be able to bust that out.
Or train percentages off that number right now.
Exactly.
Probably not the best thing to do.
It's not the case. You know, like I'm in a point where just doing an air squat hurts, and that's not a good spot to be in. So like there's parts of my own ego that I know I have to put in check and understand where I am. I can't be like, oh, why can't I squat 500 or deadlift, you know, close to 600 or do these or snatch close to 300. I'm like, well, dickhead, you have a 15-month-old. You're tired all the time. Your testosterone literally dropped 50% in 2 years. I forget to eat. I'm dehydrated. I mean, the list goes on and on. I'm just...
Baby Z's been fighting a few sicknesses back to back to back to back.
To back to back to back. It's just
hospitalized for a week. You had a handful of things, bro. It's okay. Have a little grace, but
no, for sure. But then when it goes,
train smart.
When the time, you know, comes where I am in the gym and I'm like, all right, I can have a hard training day and I go to do something like do, you know, row of 500 meters and I'm like dying, or like go to deadlift 225 pounds. I'm like, this feels like 500. I get discouraged too, knowing all the information that we just relayed to you guys. Mm-hmm. So it's okay, but I also know that I'm still committed to this process and that it's not a permanent place of residence. Just like it took 13 years to build up these neural adaptations and, you know, tissue of muscle. I'm not going to lose it over the course of 6 months to a year.
There's some interesting studies on that topic, muscle memory.
Yeah.
Like how quickly after you developed a certain level of strength and hypertrophy, you know, you feel like it depletes in, 4 weeks. But it took 6 years to get there. But the reality is, as soon as you start training again, it's back in 8 weeks.
Yeah, even less.
Even less. So, and there's significant research out there that truly supports that muscle memory. So, bro, don't get discouraged with yourself. You're living a realistic life of overcoming some, obstacles and what do you want to say? The transforming moment of life when you're bringing minions into the world and this and that, and they come with
greatest thing ever.
But to pretend it ain't work and it doesn't change things up would be naive. Mm-hmm. So, but when you guys are going through these chapters of life, you need to, one, have grace with yourself, but just remember, maintenance is okay. It's okay to maintain just, a couple days a week. If you work out intentionally 2 to 3 days per week, you're going to maintain and probably still make some progress. If you hit 2 full body workouts twice a week, you're probably going to maintain. As long as, the rest of the time you're not eating like a complete idiot.
And the intensity is there.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah. Those 2 days a week need to be intense.
Yeah.
And intentional. So, give you guys, if you're going through a chapter, give yourself grace, and you're just building a more solid base for the next launch pad of, your fitness journey. But giving up and just quitting and hanging up the towel, that's something you can't do, because that becomes harder and harder and harder to get back. And at a certain age, it doesn't come back. Mm-hmm. You don't use it, you lose it.
Yep.
So just be intentional, you guys. Yeah. Progressive overload, track your weights, building weight, and whether you do this based off 1 rep max, or if you're just tracking your weights week by week and, say we're doing back squats this week, you do 95 pounds. The next week you do 100 pounds. Just something to track progress and increase load on a consistent basis until you hit some sort of failure point. Now, if you're working in that constant 5 to 8 rep range, your failure point might be only getting 4 reps or 5 reps. A way I think of a training sequence with one of my clients is we train the same weight week by week, and we work from 8 reps, 6-8 reps up to 12 reps. When we get up to 12 reps and that's consistent, we know on those exercises we're going up in weight the next week down to 6 to 8 reps. So it's 2 to 3 weeks. You build up a little more volume, and then it kind of resets. So we take time and build up slowly, and that's how we I do that with a couple clients. And you can do that right in group class. I do that right in group class with myself. You just have to track. If you don't track, you don't write it down, you don't know. It's all guesswork and it's all based on feels, and typically that doesn't go anywhere.
And Louis Simmons coined this expression, without a plan, you plan to fail. So unless there's a plan in place and being able to know where you're at in that plan, aka track progress, then it will only work for so long.
Yep. And then the other 23 hours of the day. If you want to gain muscle and strength, you can't be a ding dong in the other 23 hours a day. You need to get your protein in. You need to eat a balanced diet. You have to do these things, or it's simply, when you could be making consistent 70, 80% progress, you're making 20% progress or not making progress. Optimizing your intake on protein, carbohydrates, your micronutrients. These become vastly important if you want your body to function well. This is the fuel that drives results in this world. Your sleep, gotta sleep. So just, figure out the other 23 hours a day and improve the quality of those just as much as your gym quality, because it really does matter. We've already talked about volume and intensity. Those are the only, just a quick little recap. You're not going to make progress without volume or intensity. You need one or the other to make progress in training, any kind of training.
Yeah, and like what you talked about earlier, having too much intensity too often can break you to pieces.
Yep.
Having people romanticize this idea and think it's sexy, just having a shitload of volume is what's going to yield results. That's also going to break you down.
Yep.
Even if your intensity is not there and you're doing just working for the sake of working, it's going to break you down too.
So this is a way to frame this for you guys. If you're doing high volume, the intensity needs to be low. If you're doing high intensity, the volume needs to be low. The breaking points happen on the volume when volume and intensity are pushed together at the same time. And these are typically around maximal effort tests, depending on what the test is. But I will argue that high volume, high intensity leads to more issues from injury standpoint, endocrine standpoint, sleep disruption. So being very mindful of volume and intensity. I do quite a bit of volume, but my intensity is pretty low.
Yeah, I really like using analogies, metaphors, and stuff like this to drive these points home. Like if you take the 100-meter sprinter in the Olympics versus the marathon runner, two very drastically looking different people. If you took the 100-meter sprinter and had them accumulate the same amount of volume of sprinting as the marathon runner does in volume, that person would be broken in the hospital and no longer with us.
Yep.
So there's some imagery, if you will.
Yeah. Well, and that somebody who trains at high intensity, low volume is going to develop their body and structure differently than somebody who trains at high volume, low intensity also. I would say in our space, general physical preparedness space, we do pretty decent job at kind of training both, but not the best at either. And that's GPP. We're just trying to be generally physically fit. Like I always say, I want to be slightly above average at everything that I do. So take that for what it is. But when you're going to push the volume and intensity buttons at the exact same time and often, expect all bad things to happen.
So unless you're on performance-enhancing drugs.
And I will argue bad things will still happen.
Yeah, because it's not going to last long.
Yeah. I mean, I am a guy that is on exogenous testosterone.
Yeah, but it's not.
No. I mean, there's the really extreme PEDs out there that overcome a lot of this.
Yeah. Your T ranges are in a range of normal.
They are. But to pretend it hasn't helped me from my abnormally low ranges.
Yeah, from going from 10-year-old girl ranges to an actual
40-year-old healthy man.
40-year-old healthy man is going to have.
But I will say, I still have to be mindful of recovery.
Yeah.
And some people, I bring that up because there's an assumption that you don't.
Yeah. No, for sure. And tapping into these ranges that are in the 1,000 plus nanoliter, whatever that
Mm-hmm.
deciliter, whatever is measured in testosterone, that performance enhancing drugs like a lot of athletes are on, they don't last long. There's a reason why bodybuilders in the last couple of years been dropping dead left and right.
I mean, look at a couple of them too. They don't look like they're functioning so well in their older years.
No, I mean, they have this extreme external expression in their bodies and performance, whether it's a bodybuilder or an elite athlete that we know is on drugs. They don't last long. They're not in it for longevity.
No.
They're in it for absolute peak performance for a very temporary amount of time, or fame and glory.
Yep. And the body pays for it. So again, regardless of what drugs you're on, you still got to train smart. Probably avoid the drugs unless you're using medical supervised interventions for your long-term health and happiness. But when it comes to PEDs, well, don't be an idiot.
Yep.
Sums that up. Another little quick part on this that kind of relates to all this is value in the warm-ups. And all the coaches at the gym kind of do their own warm-up. But one of the big things that's consistent across that is getting a high-quality warm-up, blood flow, feeling out your joints, feeling out your body, seeing how things are going to go that day, blend together the objective and subjective data of how you're moving during the warm-up. And the more intention that you can put into your warm-up, the better your training session in that hour is going to, the more value you're going to get out of that training session in that hour. I often hear folks say, I'm not warmed up until, 40 minutes into the workout, I start actually feeling good. Well, that tells me two things. You either take a long time to warm up, and I happen to be one of those people. For me to feel really good for a training session, a 20-minute good warm-up is something my body needs. I don't get warmed up, traditionally really fast. And everybody's different. Some people can warm up pretty quick, feel great, start moving quick. Some people take a long time. This is also age dependent. When you're a little bit older, this also is dependent on the time of day you work out. Somebody working out in the morning needs more time to warm up than somebody who's been moving and awake and blood flow and oxygen, all day long, and they work out in, midday or afternoon. Mm-hmm. These things actually do matter if you want to get the most value out of your 1 hour training session. A couple things that I want to touch on is the subjective and objective parts of knowing if your body is primed and feeling good during a warm-up. So for me, personally, you can chime in, high skill technique kind of stuff. If it's not going well, I'm either not warmed up enough or I'm very under recovered. So for instance, if I'm tripping over my feet doing double unders, which is something I'm kind of good at, I consider myself good at double unders. If I'm not getting them in a warm up, it's not like I just lost all my double under skill. Chances are I'm pretty under recovered. And that is a sign for me to check in on my body and, maybe wrap my head around the training is going to go that day. Another area that I like to pay attention to is the power clean. If we have power cleans in the workout and 135 doesn't feel light and crisp, I'm either not warmed up enough or I'm under recovered. Mm-hmm. And that's going to guide, if there's no snap in that, that's going to guide my training session that day. But a good warm up changes that. You get on a rower, for instance, if the rower feels heavy, pulling a 2-minute row time for 500, for me, I'm not, feeling it that day. But if it feels very snappy, like, that first 30-second machine, you're going to warm up with some, class coach, 30 seconds on machine. You jump on there and that 30 seconds on the rower feels just like really crisp and the pulls feel strong. Mm-hmm. Okay, this is going to be warm-up's going to be a little quicker, but it's going to be probably a good training day for me. And then the last one is just when I hang from a pull-up bar. If I jump up there and grab the bar and I feel like I'm 500 pounds, chances are I'm not 500 pounds. Chances. But that's the body just not feeling great and I'm under recovered. Mm-hmm. And I bring these up only because sometimes a good 15, 20-minute warm-up can change all that. Now, I get a good blood flow going and then everything changes. Some days I'm feeling great right out the gate. but most days I definitely need that good warm up. And I bring this up, for anybody out there listening to get a good warm up in, but our members just being intentional. I know it's a time to socialize. I know it's a time to catch up with your friends and this and that, which is great. We love that about the community, but just, making sure that, you guys do understand and believe that there is value in this training volume of a warm up to get a great workout. Your workout's going to be better if your warm up is better.
Yeah. I think the biggest part people in a warm up, myself included, is just being intentional about it. Mm-hmm. Whether you're one of those people who needs to warm up for an hour before you do an hour workout, obviously in like a class setting, sometimes you may not have that luxury. But if you're being intentional about what it is you're doing, like just as simple, and I know it can be very basic. Like if you're going to hop on and do 2 minutes on the machine, and you're just sitting there on an assault bike and your hands are off the handles and you're just barely pedaling with your legs, it's not doing shit. Yep. Like if you only have those 2 minutes to jump on a machine before you start doing something else like that, let's say that's the only monostructural movement you're going to do, you need to make those 2 minutes count.
Yep.
You're getting your arms involved. You're pushing the pace.
Like respiratory rate up.
You're getting off tired. It's the first time you're getting your heart rate up in the day. Your lungs are like getting jump started for the first time. You should be a little fatigued. It's still going. You should be a little fatigued when you get off. Yep. Like if you get off and you're just using your legs and putting around, which I see more people do that than be intentional, then you just essentially, and I yell at people, I'm like, there's no point in even doing the 2 minutes.
No.
Like you just need to be intentional about what it is you're doing. Like I coined something in the gym for some people that are the other extreme, if you will, like strength training, for example. Let's say you have 400-pound back squat. You go to warm up. How does this warm up? Even being older, how does this warm up sound? You're going to do 2 sets of 20 empty bar. Then you're going to do a set of 5 at 95. Then you're going to do a set of 5, and you're trying to get to 400 pounds. You're going to do a set of 5 at 135. Then you're going to do a set of 5 at 155. Then you're going to do a set of 3 at 185. Then you're going to do a set of 3 at 205. Then you're going to do a set of 2 at 225. Then you're going to do a set at 275. And then you're going to do a set at 295. And then you're going to do a set at 315. Then you're going to do, like, there are people in the gym that are also too far on this spectrum of now you're just wearing yourself out before you actually are doing the thing that needs to be done.
Yeah.
So
that sounds terrible, by the way. You asked me how this is a sound. It sounds terrible and it's dumb.
So I coined something in the gym that I only tell this to my veteran lifters that need to get out of this funk that they need to do 75 reps before they actually get to any real working set is called BJL, Big Jump Life. So like me, I'm on the other extreme. I know how in tune my body is before I even start the reps. I get my knee sleeves on. I get a little movement in, a couple air squats, a couple glute work with the band. Boom. I do 1 rep if I'm trying to get up to, let's say, 405. This will be my exact squatting regimen. I will do 1 rep. Or no, I take it back. I'll do 5 reps with a barbell. I'll do 1 rep at 135, 1 rep at 225, 1 rep at 315, 1 at 405, done. I'll be done with a squat session in 3.5, 4 minutes.
Yep.
But I know my body well enough that I can do that.
And that's experience, right? Mm-hmm. That is experience. But again, if you're squatting over 400 pounds, there's a high probability of training experience. Not many people just kind of naturally do that.
No, and that's why I was saying for my veterans, if you're taking so long to warm up, then it's also a disservice to you because you're just wearing yourself out.
Yeah, and you need to, so I got a person on my brain right now who we had a conversation with about, he has to get up to pretty big numbers, to get his working sets based on the percentage work in his legitimate 1 rep max. And it's like, I don't feel like, because class has to also function on a structure, right? And 2 things you brought up there that I did tell him. 1, you need to take bigger jumps than your weights. Like in my mind, there's no reason for me to ever back squat an empty barbell. Like, I don't know why I ever would. Unless I'm just, I don't know. But if back squat is the strength that day, my first lift is going to be a 135. I might hit some air squats and some lunges and a couple things before that to get the joints greased. But I'm just, so to your point, taking bigger jumps. but also knowing your own body. If you know you need extra blood flow for me to have a great squat session, I need 10 minutes of monostructural work at a, mid intensity for my muscles to like feel good. I am more of an endurance oriented person. So I do take a little longer to warm up. Unless I'm just feeling really good and recovered that day. But knowing your body, and if you need a little more time to warm up for big lifts, get in early. Get a little more blood flow going, a little more movement going before class. Because the Jacob's point drives me nuts when I'm seeing people building up their back squat and they're using 5-pound plates.
Yep.
Like, no, we're taking big jumps. And anybody that comes to my class, I typically know where their lifting ranges are and who wants to build strength in those lifts. And I've said it quite a few times, like, here's our warm-up rep scheme, but nobody's squatting an empty bar for the first one. Like, your first 10 reps is at 135.85. Then we build up, and we take big jumps, and we get the work done. So, yeah, know your body, get warm, be intentional with your warm-ups. I do prefer quite a few reps in my general warm-up, but that usually involves monostructural machine work, some air squat, just whatever. But I do prefer that. So Jess would probably say, do you though? Because I often show up to class late when I do get to jump into class. But I also don't approach the workout the same way when I don't get a good warm-up in.
Mm-hmm.
But know your bodies, be intentional with your warm-ups. Work with your coach. Your coach, if you go to the same coach, is going to know your warm-up style and is going to get in tune. Sometimes it looks like I'm just creepily staring at people, but watching people move during the warm-up tells me a lot about how they're feeling that day.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody I know moves a certain way and I'm watching them kind of creak around. Like, I know something's off, and I'm going to go talk to them about it and see where they're at on that day and guide their training appropriately for them.
Yeah.
So your coach actually picks up quite a bit just watching you guys. And, your communication in both ways heavily matters, and it helps. So getting short on time, but I want to crank through these last couple topics. Hot topic in the longevity space and the gurus online. And, you guys know how I think most people are dipshits, but I try not to be one of those. But the old creatine back in the hot seat again on the interwebs, if you will. Some new research came out about now people are saying 10, 12, 15 grams of creatine per day because of all this mental cognitive function stuff. So you got the big names out there in this space, citing this new study and saying 5's not enough anymore. We need 10 to 15 grams, and 2 members specifically, I'm not going to say the word a lot because it sounds weird, but 2 people asked me about this. And I honestly, at this juncture, I don't know the answer that I'm willing to say it's good nor bad. Here's what I can say on creatine. It's extremely important in your body, and it supports high intensity training efforts. It helps with recovery. It helps with building muscle. It does and has shown to have positive effects on cognitive function. It is the most researched supplement out of all sports supplements of all time. I can't think of another one. It helps with brain farting.
Explosive
power. But that's going to be the main one. Creatine's not going to be a huge impact on the super long endurance side of things, but in our kind of training that we do in the gym, it has a noticeable impact. I can attest to that, and the research supports it. But all the research has been based off 5 grams per day on average. And there's an equation, so it's anywhere from 3 to 7 grams per day, depending on how big you are. But that is the bulk of the historical data of research. This new stuff coming out where they're testing some cognitive function in regards to higher doses of creatine, completely saturating your body to where it's, crossing the blood-brain barrier, maybe more effective, this and that. I'm not here to say it's neither good nor bad. I think there needs to be a little more studies before you start, doubling and tripling your dose of creatine in your body. There's kidney things to think about potentially here. And just a little bit, I've looked into this. I'm personally not one to jump right to this 10 grams per day deal. Like I'm all in on making sure I optimize my cognitive function long term. I don't want any sort of neurodegenerative things as I'm getting older. But I would caution people to jump to this based on, a few people in the influencer space now spouting off this new study. I do think people that have a low protein or non-animal based protein diet do get bigger benefits from creatine because the way our body synthesizes creatine naturally, it'll synthesize some, but the majority of the creatine we get comes from animal based protein.
Yeah, and to get 5 grams of it from animal-based protein, you'd have to eat 5 pounds of red meat in one sitting.
It's something ridiculous like that. It's nearly impossible to get full muscle body saturation points. So supplementing creatine does have a profound effect on everybody. And I will say those that don't eat animal-based products probably has a more profound effect. Is that more profound at 10 grams versus 5 grams? I personally believe if you're taking it consistently, your body's going to hit saturation. And, I'm sticking with the 5 grams per day until, there's some mind-blowing research on major cognitive function improvements. But you do you. I would just caution it. This is just a very recent deal, and I'm just not sold on a double or triple dose of this being any more effective outside of creating potentially expensive pee. And so that's my 2 cents on the new creatine deal going around. And at the end of the day, just a reminder, creatine monohydrate in its simplest unflavored form is the best one to buy. It's also the one supplement companies make the least amount of money on. So oftentimes companies will add their proprietary blend of this and that, and this absorbs better and blah, blah, blah. It's all bullshit. You need creatine, monohydrate, unflavored, add it to your shake, dry mouth it, however you want to do it. But gummies, I think, are garbage. Anything with a proprietary label when it comes to creatine, garbage. Simple.
Just marketing.
It is. At that point. It's to squeeze out another 20% on a product that can't be patented and on a product that's easy to make. So simple creatine monohydrate unflavored is the way to go. It's the only one I sell. And so keep it simple. Next, quick on this deal is understanding quality of your supplements. Knowing that your supplement is third-party tested. Transparent Labs, Pure Encapsulations, Designs for Health, and First Form all subject their products to third-party testing for validation of what's in them and confirmation of what's in them. So if you're buying big box store supplements, you're like, wow, I'm getting 4 pounds of this for half the price of that. Well, you're getting 4 pounds of garbage, most likely. It's not subjected to third-party testing. It has a bunch of fillers and additives, and I'm telling you, in the supplement industry,
it's dirty.
It's dirty. And if you don't look things up, well, you might feel like you're saving money, but at the end of the day, you're just wasting money and putting a, potentially harmful but non-valuable product into your body. So you get what you pay for in this space. Oftentimes I get people to take less supplements than more, but taking higher quality supplements is important. And you want to look and see if it's third-party tested. You can look it up right online, search it.
Yeah, a big part of that is avoiding things, like you said on here, is things that say proprietary blend. All that means is that they could literally put in whatever they wanted to fill up the jug or whatever it is. There's a documentary, older one now, it's called Bigger, Faster, Stronger. Mark Bell, who's a old power lifter, his brother actually did this documentary. And he made a point of how dirty the supplement industry can be, that he hired 2 illegals to help him bottle and label like 400 pounds worth of shit, not literal shit, but it was advertised as like a creatine, but it was just like flour. Like it wasn't even actually the supplement. And it cost him per bottle, the label and the material to put in the bottle cost him 10 cents. And then he turned around and sold it. I think he gave people refund, but as they didn't know, sold this for $70 a bottle. But he had proprietary blend on there and said all this marketing jargon as a point of just how dirty the supplement industry can be. Literally and morally.
It's a gross industry. And it's worth spending the extra money. And I personally believe that we carry brands that value quality and reasonable cost pretty well. There are a handful of companies out there that we don't carry that I do believe in. It's just I don't want to put the effort into carrying every company. It's not my goal to be a supplement store. Our goal here at the gym is to offer things that we believe in that are high quality and at a fair price point for the quality that you're getting. So yeah, just be mindful. You buy cheap shit or stuff that sounds cheap, you're getting cheap shit. And
a lot of times, a lot of these brands, flashy brands, and you walk into a GNC or vitamin shop, it's still going, they're usually made by a parent company, which is different labeling. Like if you walk in and it really catches your eye because it has all these flashy colors or some celebrity or influencer is promoting them, it's usually, not always, but usually a jug of shit.
And a lot of this stuff is, a lot of supplements are made in the same couple facilities around the country. So somebody comes up with a marketing plan, they subject the recipe, these companies create it and bottle it, and it's just a few manufacturers. So they can create top of the line stuff, they can create bottom of the barrel stuff. And so it's a dirty industry, guys. Ask, I'm always happy to give you my 2 cents on supplements that you're looking at and give you my opinions on them. So there, I actually think I got a video coming out on all the supplements I take and why. I think that's scheduled for like 2 weeks from now or something. I don't know. I recorded it. I wasn't happy with the recording because we weren't fully set up. And now that we have this set up, I'm thinking about re-recording it, even though it takes a long time.
Yeah, for sure.
So
it's legit now, though.
Yeah, it's much better. I think I did it on my iPhone. Or when I first got this, I can't even remember because I recorded and I've been conflicted about putting it out because either the audio wasn't good or something, but whatever. But you guys will get an update on all the supplements I take and why, if that's something that interests you. Last little piece of advice I got on this podcast today is using artificial intelligence for meal planning. I personally think that the nutrition coach of modern times, writing you macros and everything, is going to be a thing of the past. I think the artificial intelligence. I think the nutrition coach that can help you with lifestyle decisions and guide you and, for better or worse terminology, hold your hand. Still very valuable to have that mentor and leader in your life. But when it comes to like figuring out macros isn't rocket science. It's really not. And paying somebody to write you a meal plan is dead. Like I'll never write a meal plan for anybody. I've made that decision 20 years ago. It's so much work, not anymore, but it was so much work for very little return on investment. Like as far as a service offering, it not something that ever made sense to me. But now we got artificial intelligence, and it is freaking mind blowing.
And chances are a lot of these, again, fitness influencers that are doing these meal plans, there ain't no way that some of these CrossFit Games athletes, and I put my life on it, are at home when they say, apply for my program, I'll write you a fitness plan or a meal plan specifically for you, a load of shit. They probably don't even see it. You submit your plan, and then someone else inputs that information into an AI, and then it spits it back out to you in an email.
100%. And I'm just going to tell you guys how to skip the bullshit and do this yourself, and I will happily show you the prompts. But use a platform like ChatGPT or Grok. I personally use Grok as my artificial intelligence powerhouse. And you go in there. So coach, me, any of the coaches can give you your macros and starting point for calories. That's something you should still discuss with somebody. You get an in-body scan, And then that gives us a starting point for calories based on your goals. We can give you a starting point. So for instance, me, 2,500 calories per day. My goal is to build muscle. I'm going to have 40, actually this is backwards, but I want 40% protein, 35% carbohydrate, 25% fat. I think that's 100%. Is that 100%?
40, 35, 25.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, I did write this down, guys. I'm not this big of a cluster, but so I can take those numbers, plug it into, ChatGPT or Grok, and say, build me a meal plan for this week with a shopping list based on this calorie need and this percentage of macronutrients needs. And you can even type in there, do not include tuna, do not include Brussels sprouts, like things you hate, things that you just won't eat. Do not include goat cheese. This stuff I won't touch. And you hit enter, and it will create you a 7-day meal plan. You can even put in there for the whole family. Create a meal plan for the family. But if you're trying to analyze your calories, you'd want to do this just for yourself. And it will spit you out a meal plan and a shopping list in seconds. And it's detailed. And if you don't like it, all you do is say, remove this product, and it respits it out without that product. And it literally takes seconds.
Yeah, it's pretty fascinating.
And a couple members, I actually had a member show this to me, how she meal plans for her whole family, and does it every Saturday, spits it out, takes the shopping list, punches it into Instacart, all the food's delivered to their house, and they have their meal plan, prep, everything for the week, and they do it for a family of 4. And she said on average it takes them about 2 hours on Sunday to literally do everything and have it set up and accomplished for the week. That's pretty impressive. Mm-hmm. And their kids are pretty young. So that's a tool. Use it, don't use it, but I thought that was pretty interesting and pretty cool. And it's something that I've been playing with for myself, even though I eat the same stuff all the time. And I'm okay with that. But if you need ideas and you need some meal plans and some ideas, I think that's a great tool to try out. Mm-hmm. And all these companies, I think they got free versions of this or that or whatever. So, got anything else, bro?
No, I mean, I think that was a pretty solid amount of information.
Yeah.
I mean, what helps us to come up with more content and things to talk about is if you guys have specifics, questions, things that you're curious about, please feel free to ask any of the coaches.
Yep.
They'll get back to us. Hell, if you got something that you're a leader on or that you really got some insight on, we'd love to have you in here.
I got JP coming pretty soon for some mental health stuff.
Perfect.
Yep. And if you're a member that wants to be on the podcast, we'd love to have you.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you got, story, insights, and this and that, like a lot of the people in the gym just having casual conversation have pretty awesome stories. It's cool.
Yep.
So we are set up now for this and looking forward to all things content. Mm-hmm. So yeah. All right. Well, that's all we got today, bro.
Sounds good.
Love you, man.
Love you too.
All right. Outro music. Let's fade it in. All right, everybody. Get out there and have a great week. What's the other cues on here? We can... Oh, there we go. Yeah. All right, enough screwing around. See you guys.
See you later.